Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, November 14th, 2022. I am Dave Biddle. Very happy to be joined by Steve Helwagen. A lot to get into. Let's start with this. 12 days and counting until the game. We'll get to the Maryland game here in a moment. We'll talk about some other stuff, but I want to start with that. I mean, obviously the Buckeyes have to focus on Maryland this week, but as Ryan Day said himself when he was asked last week, you guys think about Michigan? Do you prepare a little bit for Michigan every day? And he said, yeah, every day that game is on our mind. So Steve, 12 days from now at the Horseshoe, if you're a Buckeye fan, what should your confidence level be for the Buckeyes to beat Michigan this year?
Oh, I think pretty high, but I mean, it's going to be a good football game. I don't think they're going to walk in there and just roll right over Michigan. I think it's going to be a competitive game, no question about it. And rarefied air here, you're going to see two of the four remaining undefeated teams in college football, probably both 11-0. I mean, it would take an act of God for one of them to not win their game this week, with Michigan playing Illinois, who's gone completely in the crapper, and Maryland, which is flatlined the last 2 weeks against Wisconsin and Penn State. Maryland is back at home this week, and they'll play a little bit better, more competitive probably at home than they did on the road at Wisconsin and Penn State. So I think you got to be a little bit wary of that. And you don't want to look, past them. Tagovailoa, if his guys give him time, can do some things, but he was sacked 7 times last week by Penn State. So that's not a good thing. Everything is shaping up that November 26th is the date at Ohio Stadium, and that is going to be a day unlike any other. 11-0 against 11-0, and obviously we saw it back in 2006, but it didn't lead anywhere because Ohio State after that got stomped by Florida in the national championship game, and Michigan even lost, I believe it was USC in the Rose Bowl. So it didn't matter, that's a game that, while on the day that it was played, everyone thought this is the biggest thing ever. It didn't materialize in anything better or bigger for either team after that. So maybe the script will be a little bit different this time around. We'll have to wait and see, I guess.
I was in that boat. I thought after they beat Michigan, I was like the team itself. I was like, oh, they're playing this 2-loss Florida team. Who's this Urban Meyer guy? Actually, I knew all about Urban Meyer. He was at Bowling Green in Utah.
Who's this Urban Meyer guy?
I'm still thinking that Jim Tressel, Jim Tressel has 5 national titles in his back pocket at that point, 4 1AA titles at Youngstown State, then the 2002 national championship. I'm like, coaching advantage. And you and I are sitting there at the Ox press box. Teddy's running right towards us for the touchdown opening. It's like, here we go. Buckeyes are going to blow them out. And then didn't go well after that.
No, sir.
Did not go well. Teddy gets hurt. Roy Hall jumps on him, and then it went south from there. But anyway, I think I'm feeling good about this Ohio State team. There are some issues. We'll get into that in a little bit. Let's get into that. Before we get into Maryland, let's talk about that now. Let's talk about some of these injuries and your concern level. I mean, I'm concerned about running back. I don't know how you couldn't be. I mean, you begin camp with Evan Pryor being out for the year. Like, that's not good. Even though he's going to be the third string, he was going to have a role. They had a really good walk-on. T.C. Caffey, you think, oh, he's good insurance. He's lost for the year. Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams have been banged up off and on. Travion's missed the last 2 games. Thank goodness Dallin Hayden's healthy. Mayan's banged up. He went out of the game. Now, the good news, Steve, as you pointed out on the postgame show, and as Ryan Day said, as you and Patrick Murphy said on the postgame show the other night, is Ryan Day downplayed that for Mayan. So get into all that. Like, how concerned are you as a whole? And does maybe it not look as bad as it looked for Mayan? Because it looked pretty bad when he couldn't put any weight on it and had to be carted off then. But it doesn't seem like it's that bad for Mayan. Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah, my guess is they went and had an MRI done immediately and tried to get some idea of what the issue was with the ankle. It doesn't seem like anything's broken, which is good. So maybe a really severe sprain of some sort, which will just require treatment and rest. And the thing about it, I mean, this guy, he just takes a licking. He keeps on ticking. He leaves the one game, his arm's in a sling after he hit the down marker. I think that was Penn State. And then he leaves this game on crutches. And, we'll see if he's able to play next week. And honestly, it's probably not all that important that one or either of them plays a ton versus Maryland.
Right.
Maybe
Get them ready for
Henderson.
Michigan. Yeah.
Yeah, keep them ready for Michigan. If Henderson can shake the rust off a little bit, that might be helpful. Dallin Hayden, to me, has gained some valuable experience here. 19 carries for 102 yards for him. And I mean, is he the kind of guy that you want to put in there against Michigan? Probably not. I mean, if only for a few carries. I think I mean, if he's all you've got, he's all you've got. But Xavier Johnson obviously is a weapon, as Coach alluded to, that they need to get the ball in his hands if they can find a way a little bit more, because that run he made was amazing. I am not overly concerned by it. Just listening to what Coach Day said, it sounds like both guys will be available for Michigan. And it's just between now and then how much they're going to play against Maryland, if at all. And, have them ready for Michigan. That's the one that really matters the most. And you got to be able to run the ball effectively if you're going to beat Michigan. And to me, they couldn't really do it much last year. And to me, I think that's what great. You could throw for 400 yards. Certainly, we've seen them lose games several times now when they've thrown for 400 yards and not been able to run it. So, and really the critical thing is to convert those third and shorts. And that's a place where Mayan Williams generally has been effective. But I'm not overly concerned by it. I think that as we get into this week, maybe Coach Day can give us a little bit better idea if either guy's practicing. My guess is he's not going to say a whole lot about it and let the availability report that'll come out at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning speak for itself. But, I would be surprised if either guy gets more than 5 or 6 carries against Maryland.
Yeah, we do have a question, Ryan, on YouTube. Are they going to play Travion Henderson against Maryland? So my guess is, Steve, they're going to hold Mayan out. Probably, who knows? And Travion will play, but maybe he'll be on a very limited pitch count to make sure
I agree.
As healthy. That'd be my guess. Is Mayan will not play against Maryland, but will play against the Wolverines. And I think Travion will get a few carries this week. What do you think?
Yeah, I think just to get him back in the flow of things before the next time he touches the ball is against Michigan. And the people on our message board are the nicest people in the world, but people are asking, I may have been on Twitter, I got, somebody needs to ask Coach Day why Mayan Williams was still in there with a 28-7 lead. And I'm like, well, it was still the second quarter. Nobody pulls their starters in the second quarter. And it was I wouldn't say a freak injury. I mean, these things happen from time to time. It looked like somebody rolled up on his leg on a tackle, and it wasn't a deliberate injury type thing. It was just one of those. It's the game of football, and these things happen. Just as my dogs will start barking at people out of nowhere. Yeah, who lets the dogs out? So, at any rate, I think it's just the game of football, and these things happen.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Okay, let's get into some of the other things. So, DeJuan Jones, that seemed precautionary. Correct me if I'm wrong. He was dressed. He went through warm-ups, DeJuan Jones, but Josh Fryer got his first career start. I thought played well at right tackle. But are we thinking DeJuan Jones, that was just precautionary?
Yeah, it seems to me DeJuan Jones was kept out just as a precaution. He tried to warm up and was unable to play. Not sure exactly what the nature of his injury is, and maybe we'll get some more information about that this week. But again, just the way that it worked out, that Josh Fryer got in there and did a bang-up job, I thought. For them to have 660 yards of total offense, 340 yards rushing, didn't give up a sack. The only black mark against this team was the fourth down play with Mitch Rossi. He got slammed, which I didn't like the play call there. I didn't like either of the play calls on 3rd and short or 4th and short. It was kind of like you had them on their heels. 3rd and 1, if you know you're going to go for it, should be a little bit more freewheeling than what they did. But just the way that it worked out, and the Mitch Rossi play seemed to me like it was kind of slow developing, even though he kind of turned. It seemed like he turned like 180-degree turn or something to hand the ball off or something. And, sometimes you get a little too cute, I think, with your execution and your design. And I think that you just got to, as Ryan Day said, we got to get that first down. So you just go get that first down. So short yardage is something, no reason to not work on short yardage this week.
My dogs are going to hear your dogs barking, and they're going to start to bark. They're napping, so they're going to hear your dogs barking. All right, I want some. I'm the campaign manager for a marvelous Marvin Harrison, Tommy Eichenberg, and C.J. Stroud. I went marvelous. I love that Gus Johnson. It's not even that creative, but it just fits perfectly. Marvelous for Marvin Harrison Jr. He better win the Bolitnikov. Tommy Eichenberg better win the Butkus. And C.J. Stroud better win the Heisman. Your thoughts on those three young men and what you're seeing out of them?
Yeah, and let's throw in the Maxwell as well for C.J. Stroud, which is kind of like Heisman light, right. The one from the Philadelphia Athletic Club as well. I agree 100%. Marvin Harrison made 3 amazing plays in this game. The one on the sideline early in the game where he is running like this, and the ball's to his back shoulder, and he has to adjust and make the catch like that for like a 20-yard gain or something. That got him started. That was one of the first big plays that got the game rolling. Then obviously the play on the sideline, Dan Harker. Go to my Twitter and you'll see the pictures that Dan Harker had. He's like 5 yards in bounds, goes up, catches this ball. The defender is carrying him out of bounds, and as he does, he stamps his right foot down in bounds somehow and sticks it, and that was amazing. And then, of course, his touchdown, 58 yards, his longest play ever, just gets behind everybody on the post route and just keeps running, and Stroud hits him in stride. So 3 great plays by Marvin. Stroud's the best player in college football. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He proved it again this past week, and he's starting to run the ball a little bit more. He stepped out of bounds on the sideline. And I don't know if he went like that, and we've run the picture on Bucknuts, where he had his arms outstretched and everything, whether he was excited to show everybody I can run, or if it was disgust that he stepped out of bounds, because I don't know if it was going to go for a touchdown, but the guy forced him around the corner just enough that he stepped that far out of bounds. Otherwise, it was going to be about a 30-yard gain. And he had the same feeling everybody in the stadium had when he put his arms out in the air, like, I was this close, to make it a big play running the ball. So it's there for him. And if he has a Heisman moment against Michigan, then they can just start spreading the news, start putting his name on that trophy. And the other one is Tommy Eichenberg. Tommy Eichenberg's had the best year for an Ohio State linebacker, maybe back to Raekwon McMillan or somebody prior to that. And he's just rock solid. Has he had a couple foibles? Did they bounce off of him and score a touchdown in the red zone one of these last 2 weeks? Yeah, it was at Penn State. I think the freshman Singleton bounced off of him at the 3-yard line and scored. But, I looked down at the box score. He had 3 more tackles for loss in this game. He just is always in the right place. He and Knowles are simpatico. Knowles brought in a scheme that really fits Tommy Eichenberg, and Tommy Eichenberg, he executes it to a T.
No doubt about it. He now has 11 tackles for loss on the season to lead the Buckeyes. As you mentioned, he had 3 against Indiana. 7 tackles, 3 for loss. Love it. Question from Buckeye80 on YouTube. We're just speculating, but Steve, just give your gut feeling here. Do you think Jackson Smith-Njigba will return for the Michigan game?
I think he's going to try to. We've been over there on Wednesday night. Last Wednesday, he walked off the field, wasn't even wearing pads, so he hasn't even been practicing. So that may have been the Wednesday before. It's kind of hard to really gauge where he's at. And as we said, it's 12 days away now. If he's going to play in that game, you would think that this week he would be working toward that moment. We have seen them after weeks of inactivity try and airlift him, airdrop him in to the offense. And it hasn't gone very well. You can't really force the ball into somebody who's not in the flow. And, I find it difficult, but was it Waddle was the guy from Alabama, wasn't it, that didn't
Right.
play down the stretch, had gotten injured, and they put him in the national championship game. Now, maybe he had practiced with them for 2 or 3 weeks leading up to that game, which makes a little bit of a difference. If he's at practice every day and 100%, then he's somewhat back into a flow. But, I can't attest to what Smith-Njigba's availability has been. As I said, the last time I saw him in person, he was walking off a practice field and didn't have pads on. So, I don't take that as a really great sign. I think he'd like to play against Michigan. I think they'd like him to play against Michigan. And just as Cameron Babb had the feel-good moment,
About that, yeah.
let's say it's 35-17 in the fourth quarter, and there's a timeout, and Stroud says, "Let's get one to number 11." Do you think that place would come down to see that? That would be, ain't nobody leaving before that game's over. This past week, with the conditions the way they were, that place was a ghost town at the end of the game. But believe me, they'll stay there till they tell them to leave at 4:30 if they beat Michigan. So that would be quite a thrilling moment if he's able to have a big play in what would figure to be his last game. I mean, CJ Stroud's down to one more game at Ohio Stadium, Dave. Just stop and comprehend that. Man.
Well, let's get out of here on this, man. So Maryland, Buckeyes favored by 27.5. They did not play in 2020. They played in 2019 and 2021. And Ryan Day just completely
something special about this rivalry, Dave.
Now, the last time Ohio State went to Maryland, last time they played there was in 2018, that overtime game that they won 51. But man, I mean, Ohio State has owned Maryland since they've joined the Big Ten.
It's like if we can hang 70 on them, we're gonna. I mean, I think they were pissed about the Chase Young thing. I don't know if they thought that came from Loxley or Maryland, that some chicanery had happened with Chase Young, that maybe they'd reported it, but they took it out on Maryland twice now. And
they were doing an onside kick, Steve, in the second half up big in 2019. That perfect onside kick. I'd never seen anything like it. Like Olave, the great Chris Olave, like caught it like in the air. It was just like a perfect. I've never seen anything like that. That was absolutely Ryan Day sending a message to Mike Loxley. He doesn't like him at all. Anyway, so early on, it looked like Maryland might be a good team this year with Tagovailoa. They, as you said, they've been in a tailspin. Anything to worry about this week? Buckeyes 27.5-point favorites, looking ahead to Michigan, going on the road. Anything to worry about here? I don't think so.
Ohio State gets everybody's best shot. I mean, Northwestern didn't roll over and die for them, and I think Maryland will have some pride and will give Ohio State a fight. I mean, I've been out there, and Maryland has played them tough for a quarter or two. And them playing at home, I think, does make a bit of a difference. So I think for a quarter or two, they're going to give Ohio State a fight. I can't sit here and do a score just yet because I haven't. I mean, Maryland has played so bad the last 2 weeks, and Ohio State played so well this past week that you just think if all things are equal, Ohio State should go out and score another 56 points this week, because Maryland just didn't have it the last 2 weeks. Now, the conditions may not have been very good at Wisconsin. I bet the conditions were similar to what Ohio State had at Northwestern, because it's not that far away from there. But so maybe the conditions weren't great for Tagovailoa. I don't think either quarterback that day threw for a lot, but Wisconsin lined up and ran it for a lot. That's for sure. So we'll see. And again, we don't know if Henderson or Williams are going to play or what the situation is with that. But I would think Ohio State goes in and wins this by at least 3 touchdowns and maybe more, depending on how it falls. But I do believe you can't take anything for granted. And I'm not saying there's even a chance that Maryland wins this game, but they can make it competitive. I mean, they've got guys. It's just, man, they haven't pass protected for Tagovailoa at all. I mean, Jeff Erman covers them for our Maryland site, and his tweets were just disconcerting. I mean, just like Tagovailoa has no faith in his offensive line right now that they will protect him. He is trying to get the ball out of there and protect himself. And I mean, these were the things that he was writing, like watching this game live. And I'm like, Ooh, with JT Tuimoloau and Zach Harrison and the guys coming. Ooh, I don't know. That doesn't bode well for TT, but we'll see. And I like going to Maryland. I don't mind it. There's a lot to see and do in the Washington, D.C. area. I didn't even know until I went there in 2014 where it even was. It's actually 4 miles from the Washington, D.C. border. It's University of Maryland, but it may as well be the University of Washington in Maryland because it is right outside Washington, D.C. It's closer to Washington than it is to Baltimore. So we fly into BWI and then we'll drive about half hour down there to go to the game. And I don't mind it at all. I think if they had a good team, Dave, their stadium, the crowd on both sides is right on top of the action. It's a great place to watch a game. They don't draw because they haven't been very good. But and they're in the toughest division in all of college football. When you have to look up and play Michigan State, Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State every year. That's 3.5 losses you can pencil in every year. Every year. They are 2-18 against those teams since 2017. And one of the wins was against a crappy Michigan State team earlier this year. So, go out there, take care of business. That's what I say.
You're always taking care of business, Steve.
We're trying.
Steve Helwagen. Appreciate it, my friend. He is Steve Helwagen.
I got to get these dogs under control over here.
I know you got to get out of here. So, get your dog. I'm glad they settled down a little bit. Although some dogs barking in the background, I don't mind it. That adds a little flavor to the show. Great stuff from Steve. Thank you to all of the listeners and viewers. Appreciate you guys very much for tuning in. Hope everyone has a great day.